Hello everyone and welcome to the session. We're so excited to have you here for our first coffee Q&A session and to get to know each other a little bit more and what FSI is all about. However, before we start the session with our team members Quentin and Michael, we've got a couple of announcements to make. First up, we've got the reports competition, and we've also got another competition running called Your Story. The details for that are down in the description below, but I've just got a little promotional video for the reports competition, so I'll play that one now. Excellent. So we are super excited for this competition and the other one that we're running. If you do have any questions, just let us know in the chat or send us an email. The details are down in the description. Make sure you've got a cuppa as well, because we're about to get into the session and the live chat is open. So if you've got any questions at all that you want to ask us about FSI or our products or anything at all, just put it in there and we'll get to it at the end. We'll be back in a moment with our first question. Excellent, and we are back. So our first question that we've got is for Michael, and what we've got is, how long have you been the CEO of FSI and what does your role entail?
Thank you very much. I've been the CEO of Functional Solutions, or FSI, for more than 35 years. And I remember when we started, my kids were just starting primary school. That's how long back it is. And so it's been an exciting time for me, because when I started, I did almost everything. I designed the software, I wrote the software, I wrote the specifications for the upgrades, and I was involved in every aspect and had my finger in the pie in absolutely everything that happened. So that was 35 years ago. But my role has changed significantly, especially in the last 10 to 15 years, because I am one of those very blessed and lucky people. Some people would call it luck. I call it a blessing, because every one of those primary school children of mine, all three of them, now work for me, and work for me in quite sophisticated and complicated capacities. So I can take my hands off those levers and controls. And so I've got not only those children, but their spouses as well working for me, which means that I no longer have just one vision. We've now got input from my children, from their spouses, and we are one of the very blessed organizations where we have other amazing people that we've employed that have technical expertise in very specific areas. So I can now let go of the controls and allow them to guide this company. My sole role at the moment now is to make sure that all my staff adhere to a standard of integrity, which we ask them to look towards, working towards. So we have and are very proud of our integrity in this marketplace. And I'm just taking a step back, and the benefit that our users are having now, they're not going to get Michael's view of how a library system should work, or how content should be delivered, or how a data farm needs to be run. I have this incredible amount of technology and a credible amount of people that are highly trained. And so I can just look at what they do, and I'm amazed at what they come up with. And at the end goal is to make sure that we have the best solution, the best software, and above everything else, the most affordable. So as I sit back, I can now afford to say to all our users, to all our staff, to all the teachers who use our system, that I'm available 24/7. If you have any issues or any discussions you want to have with the CEO of this company, my phone, my email address is on our website, and I am contactable, guaranteed to talk to you about any concerns that you have. So that's my role now. It's more a management from a much hands-off approach. Thank you.
Excellent. So good to know. And off the back of that, Quentin, what does your role in the company entail?
I've been with the company for 11 years now, and I've worked with all the different departments, or within all the different departments of FSI during that time frame. My role now as general manager is to work with all of those departments to ensure that our mission statement is upheld, which is to be market leaders in the customer experience. And that goes beyond just how you perceive our support, but it's the experience of engaging with our products and our support campaigns. And it's also to make sure that all of our 7 different product lines all work together to bring the best experience for our users. And a good example is when we have our TV for Education department, for example, start coming up with a new idea and a concept on how the search engine can be a little bit better for the TV for Education users. My role is to work with the development team, the infrastructure team, to support that, and then to also take that across to our library automation, our smart lessons, our my lessons product lines, and make sure they benefit from those ideas as well. So that's what I do in the company at the moment, just kind of bouncing around and just working with all those departments to make sure that that customer experience really is the best that it can be, and we maintain that status of market leaders in everything that we do.
Excellent, excellent. Also, I guess my next question is, we've mentioned it a couple of times before, but what is the full name of FSI, and why was this name selected for the company?
So functional solutions, where did we start functional solutions from, Michael? How did we start up with just FS?
Functional Solutions was basically not a company that was involved in education. We did a lot of work for a lot of big multinational companies. And a good example is the government of Nauru. We basically ran their whole accounting system. The Confederation of Motorsport, basically every driver that was involved in racing in the Grand Prix or any other rally in Australia, we handled all the software that controlled all of that. And I can think about a whole bunch of other industries that we wrote manufacturing software for. We competed with IBM. They had a product called Maypac. And I remember how we took over a number of customers of theirs. So we started in that area, but we actually went into education when my children started going to school.
Yeah, so the branding of functional solutions is basically just a product name that gave us the ability to look at all the different facets of the industries that we were in. And we were solutions that were functional for all those different industries. When we moved into the education sector, we were there for probably about 15 years, was it, Michael? 20 years as FS?
Yes. So we were only in library. That's all we did.
Yeah.
And so we said functional solutions. Well, we did manufacturing, we did membership, we did accounting, and now we happen to do library. So it was still functional solutions.
Yeah. And then as we put our backing behind the education sector and our library sector, we dedicated ourselves to that for about 15, 20 years. And then we started, or we were dedicating that to the Australian market as well. And then we started having a lot of interest from overseas markets. So that's when we rebranded ourselves as Functional Solutions International, so that other potential customers from overseas knew that we were a global entity. And as a result, we do have a number of customers offshore outside of Australia that we support and deliver our products to. So that's very exciting.
Yeah, and when you talk about outside of Australia, Malaysia and Thailand and were massive users. We had massive universities running our library automation software there.
Awesome. So good to know. So I guess kind of related to that, why exactly was FSI started?
Just to add to that, Michael, we've got an additional question from one of our participants today. How did we get into education, and why did we get into the education sector?
Yeah, that's very important. When you're a parent and when you have young kids, especially at primary school age, your world revolves around them and you want the best for them. And so over our backyard in Glen Waverley, we had this little school, and it was, they went from prep to year 12. They had about 150 kids from prep to year 12. But my wife just fell in love with this place. And when we went there, we discovered that they weren't flushed with money. And they were looking to buy a library system for their school. They were not automated. And I was shocked because in those days, more than 30 years ago, a house in that area cost about $35,000. And they were charging $35,000 for a license for a library system. And I couldn't believe it. It was just a glorified database. And when I looked at it, and we were asked to give them a hand in selecting a library system, and I looked at this American piece of software, and I just said to the principal, look, if this is what you want, it's a glorified database, give me 2 weeks, I'll write you something. And by the way, it was in DOS, and the world had just gone Windows, and it was a single user system. And I said to the principal, if you give me 2 weeks, I'll give you exactly what that system does, except it'll be multi-user and it'll be free. And that's how we started off. And I said, you can ask me for any help you want and I'll help you. But what we discovered was a whole bunch of other people started ringing me up on my phone and saying, can you change this? Can you do that? What I found out was that the librarian there was starting to give this software to any and everyone that wanted it. And I thought, you know what? It's about time that money in schools was put into schools instead of into the bank accounts of software companies. So we decided that we would commercialize that. We would never, ever sell a license to use, and neither would we ever sell our software. We'll make it freely available to any school that wanted it. And all you had to do was pay for support. Support in those days by our competitors was about $7,500 a year. And then if they issued an upgrade, you had to pay for that. And if you wanted to change, you had to pay for that. And we said, no, we'll charge you $3,000 and that's it. You get whatever you want out of us from support. So that's how we started. That's the way we believe we changed the face of library automation and charges. And at that time, there were 28 Australian software companies in the marketplace, 28 that provided software for libraries. Now, there's probably only about 4 players in Australia, and 2 of them, the largest one is actually American and Canadian owned. The other one is New Zealand owned. And there's us and another small competitor here. And we are going to make sure that we take Australian technology, make it affordable, and make it available to anyone who wants it, and have it best of breed and the best service that you can ever have. And we're proud of that. And we're proud that we've sort of, knocked over all this amount of money that was being sucked out of schools' budgets and paid into software companies. So, yeah, we're proud of that. We can lay claim to that, and we're very happy with what we've done.
Yep.
Excellent. And I suppose the next question is very much tied into that, but what does FSI provide as a whole and our individual products, and how else is it unique to the marketplace? I know you've already touched on a few points there.
Yeah, I'll start that off and I'll let Quentin finish it. But we are, first of all, Australian. Everything we do is Australian. And I venture to say that we are the only library automation company that own and run our own data center. So we're not hosting on Google or Microsoft 365 or buying server space on someone else's data farm. It's our data farm, so that's what we do. We do it very well. We provide library automation that's running in there, and we provide content. If you've never seen our content, it's something that you should look at, because in less than 6-7 years, we have eclipsed the size of our competitors' content databases by about 4 times. And we're growing at a phenomenal rate. We've got over 160,000 video files, educational video files. And our aim is to be the biggest, the best, but most importantly, to be Australian and to be the most cost-effective total solution. We don't give you a solution and cut our prices to match a budget. We give you everything with a fixed price, and there's no tricks. And above all else, we'll give you integrity. But I'll let Quentin go into a bit more detail about the product lines.
Yeah, so over the last couple of years, we really have exploded as far as the different product lines that we have. The 2 main industries that we deal with are the library automation industry, where we look after the management of resources in a resource center. And then we've got our digital classroom market space, where the core of that market is the delivery of our educational resources, and that's through TV for Education. And then in addition to those 2 platforms, as we see the needs of schools and what they're trying to do and deliver education to the students coming up, we are being reactive to that, and we're adding functionality into the system. So if you haven't integrated with it already, there is a Smart Classrooms utility. And what Smart Classrooms does is it provides a value add to TV for Education. It allows teachers to edit the clips of TV for Education. So instead of showing a full video, we're just showing different chapters. We can have little pop-ups come up on the videos to say, pay attention to the next 2 minutes. We can even add some interactive questions. We can add our own worksheets, our own websites into the lessons as well. And that's all tracked and moderated by the system. So teachers don't have to then go through and look at the responses of the students and mark them at the end. So that's Smart Classrooms. We've also gone and developed a library that's second to TV for Education called My Lessons. And that's where our research assistants have been assisting teachers all over Australia in developing resources for them to use in the classrooms. And basically, the teachers jump on, they do a search, and they can have a look at resource lists on topics. They can have a look at interactive video lessons that we've prepared for those teachers, and that's all part of the system as well. In addition to that, we've got our hosting services that Michael was talking about earlier. And we've also gone out, especially during this COVID time, and we've developed a number of one-on-one licensing products as well. So for teachers whose schools don't have the budget to be able to take on a corporate license, we've developed some one-on-one user licenses for those teachers to be able to still get access to some of this content, without having the entire school sign up to the product. So we're really excited about that. There's some new things in the pipeline that we've got coming as well. So stay tuned. It's all just going to be value added to the current product lines that we've already got.
I just want to add something to what Quentin was just saying, that if you go to any school in Australia to a staff meeting and you turn around and you say, can I see a show of hands of all the teachers that have used or will use YouTube this year? And I can almost guarantee more than 95% of teachers will put their hands up. So what we've done with our Smart Classrooms module, you don't even have to use our content, but you can use the resources of YouTube, and YouTube is an amazing resource that's free. But through the Smart Classrooms module, you can go and grab all the YouTube content you want and see it without all the external advertising and promotions. But more importantly, a YouTube video might go 10 minutes, but you just want 3 minutes at the start, maybe 2 minutes in the middle, and then maybe another minute out of another YouTube module. Our Smart Classroom module will allow you to set that up without violating YouTube licensing, without downloading and pirating YouTube content. So we're all about integrity in the way we deal with customers, integrity how we deal with YouTube, and how we deal with other broadcasters as well. And so YouTube is an amazing add-on facility, and the way we do it is you need to see it.
Excellent. So those are some really great ways in which we are unique to the marketplace and we do stand out. And I know this is something that Quentin mentioned just then with COVID and the one-on-one licensing arrangements and agreements, but what other ways has FSI been supporting customers through the COVID-19 situation?
Yeah, I'm going to deal with the issue of the supporting of users through COVID-19. One of the biggest issues that teachers are having, I've always stood in front of a class and I've always delivered my lesson. Now, all of a sudden, you're telling me I don't have a class, but I still have to deliver my lesson. So what we've done is to help you along that area. We have, if you're a user of our TV for Education product, you may or may not know that you can ask us for content, digital content, because it's all right if you're in a class and you can communicate, but you might want some digital resources to communicate a particular topic, a particular curriculum outcome, or a particular curriculum code that you need to address, or your principal has given you a list of outcomes that you now need to communicate, and communicate it digitally, remotely, without ever even seeing a student, and then keeping track on the engagement level of those students. Now, we're not a learning management system. We don't pretend to be a learning management system. We are a system where we can actually give you resources to communicate and then keep everybody in that space accountable for interacting with those resources. So if you've got a learning management system, you can certainly embed it in there. If you're running a library system, but you don't want to use ours, you can also embed it in there. So what we've done is we made it possible through COVID-19 to use all of our tools, all of our resources, and integrate them into whatever system you choose. So you do not have to work within our constraints. We are totally open. You can embed in wherever you want and then keep accountability there as well.
Excellent. So that's really good to know that, we do have really solid support infrastructure in place, especially in this crazy time where learning is changing. It's being quite flexible, on-site, off-site, blended learning, and all the rest of it. Kind of going off the back of that, what would you both like to see for the future of FSI as a company and where we're going?
Well, as the CEO, I'll start off, and then Quentin, as the manager, can sort of, frame it and put it all together. But I personally, looking at how we started, we decided that education is a right. It's not a privilege. So we want to make sure that we give every teacher in every school, regardless of their social, economic background or standing, we want to make sure that we provide a level playing field not for the teachers, for the students. So no matter whether you're a primary school student in a very highly financed school or a totally impoverished school, that you have exactly the same content that you can put out there, and without having to pay an arm and a leg for it, and having to have all your budgets sucked up by software companies sucking money out of your budget. We want to make sure that it's there and it's available. And if you got money to spend, my belief and hope is that that money will be put back into resources rather into software and services. That's my goal. And we think we've been very successful with that. And we're going to be pushing those boundaries as we continue to move forward.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that a little bit, we are, as a company, we've got some very incredible staff that are part of the team here, and that's in every single department. And there's an old saying that I don't know where it's come from, but I keep hearing it come up a fair bit, and it's when the head of the fish is rotten, then the rest of the fish is going to be rotten. And in functional solutions, I think that Michael, as the head of the organization here that has set the vision for us, really has set an agenda for us where the organization is going to be pitted towards making sure that education is freely available. And everything that we do is then tainted with making sure that our product lines and our support are going to be beneficial, not just for the librarians and the teachers, but the students and their parents and future generations that come after them. So for me personally, it's been an awesome privilege to be part of this journey and to work with a lot of the team members that are with us because of that goal that has been set at the top level that has rolled down to the rest of the organization. And for us moving forward as an organization, we believe that our product lines and our services really are setting a benchmark in the industries, setting a benchmark in our markets. We've introduced a lot of innovations that the industry hasn't seen before. So events like this, where we're connecting with our users a lot more frequently through YouTube and through customer service centers that are open 24/7. There's no other competitor out there in the marketplace in either of the library automation or the digital online learning environments that have a 24/7 call center and that can respond and can answer and resolve issues and queries for you. So we are really excited that we've been able to set those benchmarks in the industry. Well, one thing that we are really going to be putting a lot of emphasis behind this year and moving on to next year is to give you as the end users as many tools as possible to not only engage and get the worth out of the product, but also to engage with other users from the point of view that you'll be able to connect with and resolve different educational issues by communicating with one another and with us to resolve any of those deficiencies that are in the learning environments for you. So one of the really exciting things that we've kind of connected with a lot of people through is the online Facebook FSI community forum. We're going to be putting a lot of emphasis behind that. We've got some plans to also do some things like that with our teachers so that the teachers have a particular forum where they can go to and they can say, hey, everyone that's doing geography, I'm struggling to try and teach this topic. How did you guys come about it? Same thing with our FSI community. If we've got a library question, hey guys, I'm really struggling to figure out how I'm going to genreify my collection. How do people go about doing that? So it's not necessarily questions about the product, but it can also be questions about the industries and how you guys are working to make sure that education is pushed out to those kids as best as we can. And us as the facilitators are going to basically be looking at all of the chatter and be taking that on board so that we can either make adjustments to our customer experiences from the point of view of events like this, upskilling, or it could be changes or introductions of new product lines to support you guys on the ground. So that's kind of where we're going to be aiming on the ground level to make sure that we're always going to be at the cutting edge for you to be able to then teach efficiently in the classrooms.
I just want to add something to that, Quentin, and that is that one thing that's been on my heart and my mind, we are training kids and teaching them through schools, and manufacturing has disappeared out of Australia. Farming is disappearing out of Australia. We're buying more and more and more foreign stuff. And you got to ask the question, well, what's the point of study? What's the point of going to school if there's no job going to be there for me when I finish? We're Australian. There is one other competitor that's Australian, but our two major competitors out there is New Zealand and American/Canadian. And, so we're just saying, consider, we're not saying buy us because we're Australian. We're saying buy us because we're the best. And then secondly, if you add Australian in the mix, well, that's just a bonus for us and for your kids and for the kids that you teach.
Excellent. So, yeah, I'm really excited to see, I guess, where we're going as a company and what we stand for as well. That concludes the end of our, I guess, formal question section. But I do have one more two-part question before we wrap up the session completely. And it is part one, how have schools engaged students? And then also part two, how have users been engaging teachers with the system?
I might take on the student one, if that's okay with you, Michael.
Yeah, sure.
So there's a number of different product lines that we have on board with us. And I was working with a number of schools before we went to a COVID environment where we were working from home, and we had blended environments where we got some students at school, some students at home. With our library customers, one thing that we saw a lot of is the introduction of smart devices in a library environment. Now, not necessarily kids coming in and just doing an OPAC search on a tablet, but more so getting them to either borrow an iPad to use it to do certain functions in the library or to use their own BYOD device. And what we saw a lot of librarians doing are things like going over to the bookshelves and putting a little QR code on the bookshelf that represented all the books that were part of a particular genre or a particular location and sublocation. So instead of the students going through and looking at the spines of the books, what they could do is they could take their camera from their BYD device, scan it onto that QR code, and it would load all of the books and the covers and give them the ability to click and see the notes and see the summary, click, see the reviews on the books from other people or other peers that have been reviewing those books. Now, for those schools that really kind of took that up in a library environment before COVID, it was a really easy transition for them to then send an email or have an online presence that said, hey guys, these buttons here or these links here replace the QR codes that you were scanning when you walked into the physical library. So instead of just having a search page that had the top reads or the most popular books or just a search bar that said, just go for your life and try and find something, the kids knew, there was a QR code that I used to scan from the wizard genre. And I know that that button there says wizard. So when they clicked on it, the students were still able at home to have a look at those physical collections. And for those schools that had the ability to provide ebooks to their students and to catalog websites and to integrate with TV for Education, the transition to a COVID environment was really easy for them because when the kids clicked, they could, behind those buttons, hide the physical resources and only show the online digital resources. So the kids were still interacting with the resource center from home in a very, very similar experience to what they were doing at school. So that was really, really awesome. Now, when we see those students coming back to schools, what we're seeing is the resource centre staff taking those launch points, those QR codes, outside of the library. And instead of them only being on bookshelves inside the library building, they're going and putting them around the school. So as they enter into the science block, there's a little QR code that says, hey, if you need any help, scan this QR code. And it loads all the resources in the resource centre that has something to do with science. And I've even been to some schools where they've broken it down and they've said, oh, these are the year 7s, year 8s, year 9s, year 12s. So the students can go up and go, oh, I'm a year 12 student. I'm going to scan this QR code and have a look at the most recent resources that the resource centre staff have put up there for me. So we're seeing a lot of those library staffs, especially now as they're coming out of COVID, go, wow, it was a really different environment where kids weren't able to physically come into buildings. So we need to adapt and we need to start thinking, okay, well, if everything else is accessible through smart devices, we need to make sure that our resource centre material is also accessible to those students. So we're doing some awesome, crazy things with the lesson module and TV for Education. That's a given because that's an online platform. But I think the library side is something that I've really been excited about just in discussions with these library staff, because there's been a very, very radical and quick transition from an on-campus library to an online environment by these librarians who have just thought outside the box and gone, you know what, we've got to be relevant in this really unstable time. So that's just some of the things, and it's all being supported by SmartSuite Library. So all the QR code generations, the external links, the ability to integrate TV for Education videos with book reviews and the physical resources of ebooks. That's all part of the SmartSuite Library package. So if you are watching today and you're wanting to know a bit more about how you can do that, make sure that you do subscribe to this channel, because over the coming weeks, we will do some more YouTube live events where we can show you how to actually generate that, how to link resources to one another, and what else SmartSuite Library can do for you.
Yeah, and in regards to how have we been engaging with teachers, just think of it this way. We are not going to tell teachers how to teach. We're not qualified for that. We don't believe we're qualified for that, and we're not going to pretend. But what we will do and what we will guarantee teachers is it doesn't matter what you need to teach, what topic, what outcome you want to teach. If you need the resources for it, that's where we champion that area. We can guarantee to give teachers within 48 hours almost any program from any broadcast TV, any program from any Foxtel, give them access to access anything from YouTube. But more importantly, what about if you can't find anything, but you have a topic? Tell us and let us be your research arm. So from the teacher's point of view, think of us as your research arm, where you put in the request and you walk away and let us do the work for you. That's what we specialize in. That's what we're known for, and we're proud of it. So that's our input for the teachers.
Excellent. So that concludes all our questions for today and our first coffee Q&A session. So thank you, Michael and Quentin, for joining us. It was great to have you. And just for the next couple of sessions, we'll be running these every couple of weeks. So if you've got any topics that you would like us to cover, just let us know in the chat. We'll be keeping it open for a few more minutes, or our contact details are also in the description. So just be sure to let us know, and we hope you have a lovely rest of your day and your week, and thanks for joining us.
And just before we close off, Sophie, I'm just going to make a quick mention. These Q&A, coffee and Q&A sessions, correct me if I'm wrong, they are going to be solely for members of our FSI community Facebook page. Is that correct?
Ideally, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you do have some friends out there that are using the SmartSuite Library or TV for Education products, make sure that you reach out to them and let them know about the community. we want to make sure that we have as many people on the community as possible so that we can start networking with each other. So these events are definitely going to be aimed solely for you guys. If there is anything that you want from us, definitely drop it into the FSI community. Ask us questions, ask each other questions, and we'll make sure that we really provide the best experience that we can for everyone that's part of that environment.
Absolutely.
So thank you very much, Sophie, for organising it. It's been awesome.
No worries, and we hope to see you here next time. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Bye.
No worries. Thank you.
Bye.